I'm Dan Albus, and I want to personally thank each and every one of you for making the time to be here tonight. Are we excited, Penticton? You know, it's so refreshing to be with so many friends, families for this area who we can today send a clear message to Justin Trudeau. We are tired of his divisive approach, and we are ready for common sense leadership in this country. And you know what, folks? We aren't alone. Across this great country, we are seeing rallies in cities, in towns, thousands of Canadians coming together, saying that they don't want any more of this tired, worn out of touch government. And the momentum for Pierre is growing, and it's getting stronger every day. Now, we just have a couple of notes before we get really into tonight's rally. I'll just take a brief amount of your time. First of all, this event is being live streamed. So for anyone who's out here tonight that has a Twitter account, a Facebook account, whatever your social media, I am talking directly to you. I need you to stop what you're doing and listen. I'm going to need you to dig deep into your pocket, into your purse, and pull out your cell phone. Okay? Come on. Pull out the cell phone if you got that account. Okay, I'm seeing some hands here. Excellent. I'm going to need you to open up your Twitter, Facebook, what have you, and I'm going to need you to scroll until you can find Pierre Poilievre's social media account. Because you're following him, right? That's right, because not everyone who wants to be here from Penticton and around this country can be here tonight. We want to make it special for them too. We want them to hear his positive vision. So I need you to open up that social media account. I need you to find his account. I need you to click and share this live stream so they can hear from Pierre as well. So if you've done that, good on you. You're helping us bit by bit. So a lot of people ask me, hey Dan, how can I help Pierre? How can I help bring back common sense to government in Ottawa? And the answer is pretty easy. I've already given you one. Start following Pierre online. Share his posts. In fact, when you see something you like, don't just like it. Don't just share it. Write a positive comment. Tell people in your social media sphere that it's time to fire Trudeau. And you tell them it's time to hire Pierre for the big job. Sharing our message is so critically important. And volunteering. Another way is volunteering. First of all, we have a lot of people who have taken their time today to volunteer to make this event successful. Can those people just raise their hands, those volunteers? All right. Now, just keep an eye out for those people, because if you want to volunteer locally, you can go to them and they will help sign you up. And you know what? Alternatively, you can go to conservative.ca/volunteer. It's never been easier to get involved. It's never been easier, so just do that. And folks, it's going to take all of us. Let me repeat. Every single one of us here tonight, your friends, your family, your contacts, to take on Trudeau, to throw him out, and when the next election comes, if we all work together, we can make sure that whenever that election comes, that this country has a new Prime Minister, and his name is Pierre Poilievre. It's music to my ears, too. Okay, now, just a couple of last things. Donate, donate, donate. You can give as little as $5, and every little bit helps. Also, If you haven't gotten a Conservative Party membership, you can just go to Conservative Party or conservative.ca and join. Make sure you have an up-to-date membership. Those two things. As little as $15, Bob's your uncle, you're in. So folks, it's so easy, but make sure you take action on that. Now, a couple last little things I'm going to leave you with. We have some dignitaries here. First of all, I talked about volunteers. Some of our best volunteers are our Electoral District Association presidents. I want those presidents to stand up, raise your hand, wave us over so we can give you a big round of applause for putting yourself up in that big job. Where are you? All right. Now, some last of the housekeeping. We have some members of Parliament, and yes, they're all from our team. First of all, we have Tracy Gray, Mel Arnold, Frank Caputo, and we're very honored to be joined by MLA Dan Ashton here tonight. Dan, stand up. We have a few mayors, so the Mayor of Peachland, Patrick Van Minzel. Patrick, thank you for being here. And two of his councillors, Alina Glassman and David Collins, thank you for being here. We also have West Kelowna councillor Stephen Johnston, Garrett Millsap, Penticton councillor Amelia Boltby, and my friend Helena Conance. Well, folks, let me just say this, and then I'm gone. First of all, thank you again from the bottom of my heart. Penticton has been so good to me, and it's great to be here with friends. The second thing I want to say is I get to introduce my friend, my colleague, the incredible Member of Parliament for Kelowna Lake Country, Tracy Gray. Tracy, over to you.
Great. Thank you very much, Dan. And hello, Penticton. I love these BC Loves Pierre signs. Aren't they great? I have the absolute privilege and honor of introducing someone this evening. Someone that is very important to our Conservative movement, to those of us in the Conservative Party of Canada. Someone with common sense. Someone who is helping give hope to Canadians. Please give a warm round of applause for Anna Poilievre.
Thank you everyone. Hola, thank you. What a pleasure to be here in Penticton. Thank you everyone. It has been such a pleasure to be here in what I would genuinely call one of the most beautiful places in our country. I mean it. It has also been a pleasure to share this moment with my husband, as he shares childhood stories with me of his time in Penticton. Pierre was born in Alberta, but he was raised in a very modest upbringing by two teachers from Saskatchewan. His family would jump in a car, drive about 8 hours, I would say, and they would come right here in Penticton to spend their family vacation. Thank you. He's also a member of Parliament for a riding in Ontario. And I would say that all of that combined gives him a great perspective and helps him to understand the challenges that Canadians are facing in different parts of the country. I, on the other hand, I am born in Venezuela, and my family immigrated here when I was really young, and it is in Quebec, en français, y en espagnol, that I was raised. So combined together, my husband and I have a unique perspective and understand the challenges of the common people. We were raised very similarly, coming from modest homes, and our families living paycheck to paycheck. Despite our different backgrounds, we share the same values. And it is those different backgrounds united with our shared values that makes us a strong couple. And it is that unity that you see in our different backgrounds shared with the same values that we want for our Canada, a united Canada. So, ladies and gentlemen, embarking on this journey has come with great sacrifice. And I can guarantee you, and I can promise you, that we wouldn't be this far away from our babies if we wouldn't believe that this is a necessary fight to bring some common sense back to the country that we love. So it's a great pleasure for me to share my strong and loving husband with you all. So ladies and gentlemen, give it up, my husband, Pierre Poilievre.
Thank you to the great common sense people of Penticton and the greater Okanagan. Thank you. Who's ready to axe the carbon tax? There you go. And thank you to my amazing wife. Wasn't she the star of the show? Half the time after she speaks, I think it's better just to pack up and go home because we want to end on that high note. But we'll say a few more words. I want to thank her for being part of this journey with me because it's incredible for me to come back to Western Canada, where I grew up, and in particular, this part of British Columbia, where we have some of our greatest family memories, and share them with Anna. We hope, actually, we plan to bring our little munchkins out here to swim in the lake and see the most beautiful place on earth, don't we, Anna? And it's great to be here with the wonderful and hardworking Dan Albus. Give him a round of applause. Dan Albus. Small businessman from the Okanagan, started up a Wing Chun studio where he taught the same martial arts that Bruce Lee did. He's now using those verbal martial arts on the floor of the House of Commons. He can kill a man with his pinky finger. Very dangerous. But he's really a big teddy bear. We all know that. And we wish him and Tara all the best in getting through all of the health challenges they've been facing lately. And we love them, and we can't wait to see Tara fully recovered. We please give the love of everyone in this room back to Tara. Dan. And thank Tracy Gray, entrepreneur, shadow minister for jobs. Thank you, Tracy, for all of your hard work. Thank you to former prosecutor and one of the leading members who's prosecuting this government and fighting crime on the floor of the House of Commons, the great Frank Caputo. And then I have my associate shadow minister for fisheries, someone who knows more about fish than almost anyone. In fact, Mel Arnold is someone I went to early in my career for some guidance. I was a 25-year-old young man, and I was speaking faster than I was thinking. You know, like most young men, we often speak up a little bit too much, and I was getting myself into some hot water, so I said, Mel, do you have any advice for me? He brought me into his office, and surely enough, there was a big stuffed fish on the wall that he'd caught. He said, Pierre, you see that fish up there? If he'd kept his mouth shut, he'd still be alive. So And we have local businessman, member of the Legislative Assembly, the great Dan Ashton. Dan, thank you for being part of this. You know, one of my most beautiful memories is when my folks piled us into the car from Calgary, where I grew up. And like a lot of Albertans, we invaded the Okanagan and went camping right here in Penticton. And it was beautiful and the most majestic place on earth. And I remember these things called jet skis had just been invented. So I said, Dad, I need to rent one of those and go tear around on the water. And he said what he often said at that point in our lives: we can't afford it, but we'll get you one of those little pedal boats. So we were able to pedal out in the middle of the lake while some of the other kids tore around on their jet skis. And when I came back, I said, you know, it would have been a lot more fun if we could have had one of those things instead of the little pedal boat. He said, well, you can have one of those things. You can rent one yourself. As you get older, you'll get a job and you'll save up money and you can rent one for yourself. And sure enough, when I got a little older, I got a few part-time jobs in addition to school, saved up some money, took my mother's Chevy Lumina. Remember those things? They kind of looked like spaceships. And I took it for a road trip all by myself, and I got to rent myself a jet ski. Now, this might seem kind of like a trivial story, but actually it is a small symbol of the Canadian story. You know, I came from a very modest background. I was adopted by 2 school teachers from a 16-year-old mother who couldn't raise me. And they told me that in Canada, though, it didn't matter where you came from. It mattered where you were going. It didn't matter who you knew. It mattered what you could do. That's the country that my wife came to as a refugee. It's the country we want for our kids and yours. But now we look around ourselves. And speaking of vacations, 30% of Canadians are canceling their summer vacations because they can't afford even to have that modest camping trip that my school teacher parents treated us to when we were young and able to come to Penticton. Life costs more. Work doesn't pay. Housing costs have doubled. Crime, chaos, drugs, and disorder are common in our streets. And Trudeau and the NDP, who've caused all of this, divide to distract from their record. But the good news is this. It wasn't like this before Justin Trudeau and the NDP, and it won't be like this after they're gone. That's right. It won't be like that. We're going to turn the hurt that Trudeau and the NDP have caused into the hope that Canadians need. And we're going to do it by relying on the common sense of the common people united for our common home. Aren't we going to do it that way? Absolutely. Let's start with the cost of living. Again today, a hike in interest rates. Remember when Justin Trudeau said, pile on that debt, don't worry, interest rates are low, you'll never have to pay it back. What a wonderful utopia that would be. And sure enough, after he, with the help of the NDP, doubled the national debt and printed $500 billion, funneled that cash into our economy, they caused the worst inflation, well, since the last Trudeau did exactly the same thing, right? Exactly the same thing. Same problems, same cause, same mistakes over and over again. And here we are facing the same devastation that many families faced. I remember when I was a young toddler, my folks lost their home because interest rates shot up so quickly that they couldn't afford to make the mortgage payments. And that, too, is the result of deficit spending. You see, it's very simple. If you have more dollars chasing fewer goods, you get higher prices. If there's 10 loaves of bread and $10, it's $1 a loaf. You double the number of dollars to 20, you still have 10 loaves of bread. Well, all of a sudden, it's $2 for each loaf. And that's great if you're a multi-billionaire. All your assets inflate in value. Your real estate, your mansion, your fancy watch, maybe your stocks, your other commodities, all of them go up in price. But for the working people and the pensioners, their monthly income evaporates as inflation attacks paychecks and pensions. It's a transfer of wealth from the have-nots to the have-yachts. That is what we're experiencing right now. The rich get richer and the poor get poorer. It's entirely predictable. And what do you know? The Bank of Canada printed all that money instead of doing its core job, which was to protect the core purchasing power of our money. But we've got common sense solutions for that. A Poilievre led government. Well, that's a little baby over there crying because of the national debt she's going to inherit. Poor thing. Just cover her ears for this part of the speech. It's probably better. But we've got a solution, a common sense solution. And it's to run the finances of the country the way you run the finances of your household. And Dan can tell you this as our former Shadow Minister of Finance. We're going to bring in a law called the dollar for dollar law. It will require that politicians find $1 of savings for each new dollar of spending. Now, this law came in the United States for a brief time in the 1990s. And what do you know? They balanced the budget, paid off $400 billion of debt. And ever since that law has lapsed, they went back into deficit and haven't emerged ever since. The reason for that is very simple. The great economist Thomas Sowell said the universal law of economics is scarcity. People always want more than there is to have. And the universal law of politics is to ignore the universal law of economics. Because politicians are the only creatures in the universe that don't have to live by scarcity. The birds in the trees, the fish in the seas, they all have to maximize use of scarce resources, but not the politician. He simply pushes those costs onto everyone else through higher debt, inflation, and taxes. What I'm going to do is internalize that scarcity and require politicians go deep into their departments, find savings, find ways to do things at a lower price and with better results. When I was Minister of Employment, the Canadian Federation for the Blind came to me and said, listen, you send out these CDs of audiobooks to our members to help them read. Well, we have an electronic way where you could just zap it through an email and you could save all that money on postage and actually have more books at a faster turnaround time for 80% less cost to the taxpayer. Now, if you have discipline in Ottawa, you can find those common sense savings. I'm going to inculcate that discipline by passing this common sense law, $1 for dollar. You do it in your household. Small businesses do it in their storefront. It is common sense. You've been pinching your penny long enough. It's time for government to start pinching its pennies too. Yeah. And then there's the carbon tax. Then there's the carbon tax. Oh, axe the tax. 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 What do you think, Mel? Do you think they want to axe the tax? I think so. The verdict is clear. This carbon tax is driving up the cost of gas, heat, and groceries. The Parliamentary Budget Officer has shown that in every province, Canadians pay more in the tax than they get back in any of these phony rebates. And in fact, the NDP and Justin Trudeau have signed a dirty deal that means that British Columbians pay the high carbon tax, but they don't get any rebate at all. Trudeau plans to raise this carbon tax to 61 cents a litre. Who in this room can afford to pay another 61 cents a litre? And yet the local NDP member of Parliament, who's supposed to be working for you, is instead working for Justin Trudeau in raising your taxes. This is doing damage to our people. You wonder why groceries are so expensive? You tax the farmer who makes the food and the trucker who ships the food. You tax all who buy the food. I'll tell you the story of the Little Miracles of Manotick. Beautiful little tomatoes grown just south of Ottawa in a village called Manotick. But Trudeau puts a carbon tax on the CO2 released into the greenhouse. Even though it doesn't go into the atmosphere, it goes into the plant life. Apparently Trudeau missed that day in science class. What is the economic result? It's more expensive to buy the Manotick tomato in Manotick than the Mexican tomato in Manotick. So the government sends a price signal to the local consumer to buy the Mexican tomato that had to be transported by train and truck, burning fossil fuels all of the way across the continent, when the environmentally responsible and economically wise thing to do is buy the local tomato. We are going to axe the tax to bring home affordable food and fuel. Axe the tax. 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 And we're going to make hard work pay off again. Right now, we've got a lot of hard-working people in this room. Nobody works harder than the people of British Columbia. But these days, that hard work doesn't pay. I just met a young lady at a local restaurant that opened here about a month ago. And she was telling me that she's 27 years old, still living in her parents'. She has, every time she earns $1, she loses it all to clawbacks and taxes. If you're a $60,000 a year earning single mother, you earn an extra buck, you lose 80 cents of the dollar to clawbacks of the child benefit, income tax, payroll tax, carbon tax, and gas tax to get to work. 80 cents on the dollar means that if you're earning 25 bucks an hour, you're keeping $5. Nobody, especially a single mother, should be expected to work for $5 an hour. And that is why a Pierre Poilievre-led government will reform the clawbacks and cut income tax so that you bring home more of each dollar you earn, and hard work pays off again in this country. And speaking of paychecks, we're going to remove the government gatekeepers that stop people from earning those paychecks in the first place. Obvious example is in healthcare. We have a massive shortage of both doctors and nurses. And yet we have 19,000 immigrant doctors already here and 32,000 immigrant nurses already here banned from working in our hospitals because there is no efficient way to test whether they are qualified. This doesn't make sense. But you know what we have in the trades? We have the red seal so that you can get stamped. If you're qualified, you can work anywhere in Canada. It doesn't matter where you were born, doesn't matter where you were trained. If you pass the Red Seal exam, you can work it anywhere. You don't have it in the professions. A Poilievre-led government will bring in a blue seal for the professions so that immigrants and Canadians trained abroad can take a test, get to work. We can get more doctors and nurses serving our patients. And by the way, the simplest way and the fastest way to get more doctors and nurses back in the hospital would be to get rid of those crazy mandates, wouldn't it? Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. 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 And then there's the government gatekeepers that block our natural resource sector. The NDP and Justin Trudeau want to favor foreign dictator oil and gas over our own resources. They passed... Your local NDP MP wants to bring in energy from the Middle East rather than relying on the energy produced here in Western Canada. The energy sector, by the way, in Alberta and Saskatchewan, it results in massive tourism dollars pouring into the Okanagan. When Trudeau and the NDP attack our energy sector, they're attacking the people of the Okanagan. Every restaurant, every small business, every hotel, and all the workers they employ suffer when Trudeau and the NDP favor foreign dictator oil over Canadian oil. My friends, here's the plan. Here's the plan. We're going to repeal the anti-energy law C-69. We're going to build Canadian pipelines with Canadian steel, deliver Canadian energy to Canadian markets. Thank you. Thank you. We're going to bring it home, right? We're going to bring it home to this country. And it's not just oil, it's natural gas. We have 1,300 trillion cubic feet of natural gas right beneath our feet. And that gas could be used to reduce coal-fired burning electricity in Asia. In fact, the Americans cut their emissions by 21%, largely by switching from coal to natural gas. We could help Asia do the very same thing. and give British Columbians the economic opportunity that results. Trudeau had 15 of these natural gas liquefaction projects on his desk when he took office. But he said to the German Chancellor and the Japanese Prime Minister that there was no business case for natural gas. Nobody told the Americans, who built 7 liquefaction facilities. No one told the Qataris, who've doubled their production. No one told the Germans, who built an import terminal from concept to completion in 194 days. Only in Trudeau's Canada are these projects unable to be built. In fact, frankly, we have huge advantages. Shortest shipping distance from Canada to Asia, and from the North America to Asia and Europe is right here in Canada. We have clean, green hydroelectricity for emissions-free liquefaction. And speaking of liquefaction, how do you liquefy natural gas? Anybody know? You cool it down. And what do we have in Canada? Cold weather. But you don't know anything about cold weather out here. Stop your complaining. You know how cold it gets in Ottawa? I'll tell you how cold. It was so cold in Ottawa last winter, Justin Trudeau was seen with his hands in his own pockets. That's cold. But here's the plan, my friends. We're going to approve LNG terminals. We're going to turn that gas down to minus 161 degrees. We're going to ship it to Asia to break Asian dependence on coal. We're going to ship it to Europe to break European dependence on Putin and turn dollars for dictators into paychecks for our people. We're going to bring it home. Bring it home. Absolutely. Bring it home. 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 Speaking of homes, is there any 25-year-old who can afford a home these days? No. Even a 35-year-old? You know, when I was a kid, it was understood if you got a job, you graduated, by your mid-20s, you'd have your own home. Now, after 8 years of Trudeau and the NDP, housing costs have doubled. In fact, housing costs are almost double what they are in the United States of America, which makes no sense because based on supply and demand, their housing should be way more expensive. They have 10 times the people to house on a smaller landmass, 10 times the demand, a smaller supply, and yet they pay less for their housing. In fact, Vancouver is the 3rd most unaffordable housing market in the world, and Toronto is the 10th. Both of them are more unaffordable than Manhattan, than San Francisco, than Singapore, which is an island. They have no more land. And yet somehow these places with more people, more money, and less land pay fewer dollars for their property. In fact, we have the 2nd biggest landmass on Earth. We have only 4 people living on each square kilometer. This would be the perfect place to be a hermit if you wanted to be, right? You'd never see anyone if we were evenly divided. But even in our big cities, there is plenty of unused or underutilized space. We have the fewest houses per capita of any country in the G7, even though we have the most land to build on. Last year, we brought in almost 1 million people to Canada and only built 200,000 homes, and many of those homes were tiny apartments. You can't cram 1 million people into 200,000 apartments and houses. It is mathematically impossible, and home building is actually going down as the population goes up. This is the result of government gatekeeping that prevents us from building anything. We're the 2nd slowest place on planet in the OECD to get a building permit, and that adds enormous costs. In fact, a recent study added up the cost in Vancouver of labor, materials, land, and profit for the developer, and compared that to the actual sale price of a home. And there was a $1 million gap between them. So why does a house price $1 million higher than the cost of building it? That is the gatekeeper gap. That is the 7 years of delays, the lawyers, consultants, charges, taxes, and other bureaucracy that is added onto the cost of building a home. The only way we're going to build homes is by removing those government gatekeepers. So here's my common sense plan to do that. A Poilievre-led government will link the number of dollars that big cities get to the number of homes they allow to get built. I will require all big cities increase the number of building permits by 15% per year, or they will lose some federal grants. But those that exceed the target will get a building bonus to incentivize building. Thank you. Not only that, we're going to require that when I was in university, I lived with my dad in south of Calgary, and I was right next to Heritage Station. We were in a little apartment complex. I could leave late and arrive early. Jumped out the door with that essay I just cranked out, pulling an all-nighter, jump on the train and go all the way to the University of Calgary. We should have high-density transit next to all of the stations we build. I'm going to say to the cities, you want federal money for a transit station? I want big apartments so that our seniors and our youth can live right next to the bus or train. It's common sense. And not only that, we have these big, ugly, empty buildings, 37,000 federal buildings all across the country, and thousands of acres of surplus federal land doing absolutely nothing. So a Poilievre-led government will sell off 6,000 buildings and thousands of acres of land for affordable housing so that our young people can put roof overhead. Yes, absolutely. And we're going to back the building trades, the people who build our houses. No more. We're not just going to put all of the money into universities. They're great as well, but we need more building trades, and they should get the same financial support. Right now, a CEO can write off the cost of taking his private jet on a trip to New York, but a traveling tradesman who goes from Timmins to Fort Mac cannot write off the cost of his transportation. A conservative bill recently passed is called the Tax Fairness for Traveling Trades Workers, which will allow our workers to write off the full cost of all of their travel that they need to earn paychecks in this country. We're going to bring homes people can afford in neighborhoods that are once again safe. Can you believe this incredible crime wave we have across the country? Has it happened here? It's terrible. Never used to be this way. Unbelievable in the last 8 years since Trudeau and the NDP brought in catch and release. In fact, it's got so bad. Did you hear this story about the robbery in Ottawa, Frank? Robber walks up to a guy, pulls out a gun. Give me all your money. The guy says, wait a sec here. Do you know who I am? Robber says, no. He says, I'm Justin Trudeau. The robber says, in that case, give me all my money. But Frank, the reason I asked him is he used to be a prosecutor. He's put a lot of bad guys in the slammer. And he can tell you, we all believe that there should be a second chance if someone makes a mistake. But we don't think there should be a 150th chance, right? And I picked that number carefully. You think I'm exaggerating? In Vancouver, the same 40 people were arrested 6,000 times. That is 150 arrests per criminal per year. Why? Why? Because your local NDP MP and Justin Trudeau brought in the catch and release system, which allows criminals same-day release. The police will tell you that the criminals laugh at them. They arrest them in the morning, they're released by noon. They arrest them in the afternoon, and then they're released just in time to have dinner and go and commit their third crime of the day. These are serious crimes. My friends, we need serious time for a serious crime. We will bring in jail and not bail for repeat violent offenders and restore safety to our streets. Thank you. And then look at the drugs. The corrupt big pharma companies came to North America. They lied about the addictiveness and lethality of their opioids. They pushed them on the medical system. Medical system pushed them on people who were suffering from back pain. And all of a sudden, good, law-abiding decent middle-class folks were hooked on OxyContin, and they graduated up to other, more deadly drugs. In Canada, under Trudeau, we've lost 30,000 Canadians to drug overdoses. That's just in the last 8 years. In British Columbia, drug overdose deaths are up 300% compared to when Trudeau took office. His solution is to decriminalize crack, heroin, methamphetamines, and other hard drugs. These are the same drugs that are killing people. And worse than that, he uses your tax dollars to give out highly addictive opioids that are as powerful as heroin. He says that this is safe. What we now know is that the addicts who receive these drugs use them for a little while, and then they're not strong enough, so they sell them to kids and in order to make a profit to buy more deadly and powerful fentanyl. Then the kids get hooked on hydromorphone until it's no longer strong enough for them. And then they sell it to other kids so that they can buy fentanyl, and on it goes. And of course, the same big pharma companies who caused the crisis in the first place are now profiting off it in the end. Ladies and gentlemen, this is not the right approach. My plan will be to ban hard drugs, stop giving out taxpayer-funded drugs, redirect the money to treatment so that we can bring home our loved ones drug-free. Yes. We know treatment works. I was able to visit the Oaks Center in Winnipeg recently. It started by Scott Oaks. He's a former sports broadcaster. He lost his son to an overdose in Calgary. Bruce was only 25. So his dad raised the money and built this beautiful, pristine facility where they take young men, give them counseling, treatment, job training. They separate them from their addiction. They're building an apartment complex right next to it so that when they graduate, they can live right next to the treatment center, come back for workouts and yoga, and even to mentor incoming addicts. This is the way we get people off the streets and restore the hope in their lives. This is what we're going to do. And remember I told you about the dollar for dollar rule that I'm bringing in? We're not going to, the money's not going to fall out of the sky to do this. The plan is very simple. We're going to take the money we save from ending the taxpayer funding of the narcotics, and we're going to sue the big pharma companies that caused the crisis in the first place and make them pay. Make them pay. Absolutely. And we're going to bring home our freedom to Canada, aren't we? We're going to bring home our freedom. The greatness, the reason why my ancestors came to this country, in the case of my father's family, they came in 1904 to Saskatchewan. They came here for freedom. The reason that Anna's family came from Venezuela was for freedom. We all come from different places, but we all come for the same reason. And, you know, the great Wilfrid Laurier was asked, what is Canada's nationality? And he didn't name a race, a religion, or an ethnicity. He said Canada is free and freedom is its nationality. That's what we believe. That freedom has been under attack as Justin Trudeau and the NDP have passed censorship laws that control what you see and say on the internet. Already, we saw a great documentary by Aaron Gunn, a British Columbian, go missing. It's called Canada is Dying. You have to watch it if you can find it. I think it's still up on Twitter. Twitter let it stay up, but it suddenly disappeared from YouTube. Isn't that funny? As soon as it started to get hundreds of thousands of views, it had to be erased so that not too many people would find out the truth. This is control by government that we see on our universities, campuses as well, where professors are fired simply because they say things that are politically incorrect. My friends, we have something called Section 2B of our Charter of Rights and Freedoms that means freedom of expression. To be or not to be? That is the question. I'll tell you my answer. A Poilievre-led government will repeal the censorship law, and we will require every university that gets federal funds to respect academic freedom. We'll restore freedom of expression for Canadians. Absolutely. Yes. We'll restore freedom of expression for Canadians, and we will ensure the government is not able to invade your personal privacy and your financial decisions. And that is why a Poilievre-led government will ban the Bank of Canada from creating a central bank digital currency. There will be no more COVID mandates, my friends. There will be no mandatory digital ID in this country, and I will ban all of my ministers and top government officials from any involvement in the World Economic Forum. Thank you. I love you too. Thank you very much. Listen, really what we have here is a clash of philosophies. Justin Trudeau and the NDP believe they know best how to run your life. They know better than you do, right? They believe that the ordinary people are not smart enough to make their own decisions. You know, this philosophy of theirs is really funny. You see, on the one hand, they say that humans are so flawed that they can't make decisions for themselves. But yet some humans are so angelic and wise that they can make decisions for everyone else. It just so happens that they consider themselves to be the ones in that beautiful ivory tower. The ordinary people are not capable in the eyes of these elites to decide for themselves. That is the big difference. Well, let's take a look back into history for some guidance here. One of my favorite stories of the great Winston Churchill. Hey, has he been canceled? Are we still allowed to talk about Winston Churchill? Well, what the heck, we'll do it anyway. God love him. One of my favorite stories is that he used to go walk around in the bombed out streets of London right after the German Luftwaffe had demolished the place. The smoke would still be coming up. And he'd walk around the streets, meet the people, hear their stories. And one day, he happened upon a little old lady who'd been buried under rubble. And so he and his staff got on their knees, and they scraped away the rubble. And slowly but surely, they helped her to her feet. And the woman looked him in the eye and said, astonishingly, "Thank you." She was the one that was grateful. He stood there as she walked away. And minutes went by, he said nothing. Then his staff noticed the tears were rolling down his face. And he said, "There goes greatness." You see, he understood that wars would not be won by kings or queens or even prime ministers or generals. They were won by not ordinary, but extraordinary people like that lady. Like the barber who put down his scissors to pick up a rifle. Like the 17-year-old private who lied to get into the forces so that he could jump out of that trench into incoming harm's way. Like the countless tea ladies who rushed into the factories to make the munitions to fight the war. The extraordinary people, the great people. You see, if you want to see greatness, don't look to those on top, look to those all around you. You will see them right here in Canada. In all of the 100 rallies that I've had since I became a leadership candidate, I've stood in the corner and shaken hands with every single person who wanted to meet me, as I will do tonight, and I have met these extraordinary people. The waitress who balances 10 plates on a tray, serves 15 tough customers all at once, and goes home to teach math to her kid and balances her budget on a minimum wage salary. She is not ordinary, she is extraordinary, my friends. The farmer who masters the sciences of the sky and the soil to bring food from his field to your fork is not ordinary, he is extraordinary. The electrician who captures lightning from the sky and runs it through a copper wire to illuminate this room and the world is not ordinary, he is extraordinary. These extraordinary people have the wisdom and the decency to make their own decisions and to run their own lives. When I am Prime Minister, we will make this the freest country on earth to put those people back in charge of their lives. These people, these great people, might not be famous. Their names don't appear in headlines when they pass away. Words may not be spoken in Parliament, but when they walk through heaven's gate, the trumpets sound for them, because God only knows they carried their friends, their family, and their nation on their shoulders. And out goes a beautiful song from the angels, there goes greatness. It is for these great people, the common people, that we work. The common sense of the common people united for our common home. Your home, my home, our home. Let's bring it home. Thank